Hello everybody, welcome to Chris Parkin Shooting Sports. Today I've got CZ600 American in 223. Now, for those of you who watch my channel all the time, you'll see I've done a lot of reviews on the CZ600 centerfire range as well as all the 457 rimfires. There are several rifles within the 600 format and I've reviewed them all, so I'll put the link down below for that, and I'll put the link to the website as well, because one thing I will say about CZ is when they put something on their website, it tends to be true, because a lot of manufacturers, you read information on the website, you get to the actual gun and it differs. It's, you know, half an inch different here, or it's got a different thread there, and this, that and the other. A lot of the time it's because the websites are designed for an international audience and not necessarily country specific, but CZ seems to do a very good job of that, because generally speaking they work in metric, it converts to other units, whatever they want to do, and I like that. So what can I tell you about this rifle? Well, as you can see, it's bare bones straight out the box. This one has got the 600 action. This one's in steel. It's got Remington 700 compatible scope bases to fit it. The scope bases are on order at the moment. They'll be here tomorrow, hopefully. I'll go in for Picatinny ones of those. 2 screws at the front, 2 screws there. Makes life very simple. This has got the slim barrel. It's 610mm, 24 inches, and in 223 this is a 1 in 9 inch twist, and it's a 6 groove 6 land barrel. Now CZ do cold hammer forwards these barrels, and they also guarantee this rifle sub MOA for 3 shots at 100 meters. I am very confident the rifle will have no problem in meeting that, and it does say with match quality ammunition. And that goes back a little bit because it's got a 1 in 9 inch twist. Now, standard twist on a 223 is 1 in 12. There are some 1 in 10s, but a 1 in 9 gives it that little bit more versatility to go up to a 69 grain bullet. And 69 grain bullets, compared to a 55 in 223, do give you a significant improvement in windage read and hold in the wind, because although they're a little bit slower, bit of a higher ballistic coefficient. And it's interesting because years ago I once went out shooting one day with a 223 and I had both types of factory ammunition, 55 and 69 grain. And the difference in the wind hold was quite significant, because the distance hold, you know, the elevation drop, it's not that difficult to work out in terms of rangefinders and ballistics. You know, it might be a click or two on your scope maximum, but those wind holds can be quite significant. So going back to it, this has got a 9 inch twist. It gives you the 69 grain capability, quite a nice factor. And of course with a 24 inch barrel, you're going to get some good velocities. This will probably meet or beat factory stated velocities, probably by about 25-50 feet per second maybe. That tends to be my experience. Anyway, slim profile barrel, looks like about 17mm at the front. It's a straight taper. It's threaded 15x1, and I'll be putting a moderator on it, as you know. My first impressions videos are generally as it says on the box. It's what I think of it as soon as I get hold of it, and we know what the reality really is. And one of the first things I'm going to look at is the Walnut Stock. It's Turkish Walnut Stock. It's ambidextrous, so it's left or right-handed, which suits me just fine because I quite like to shoot either way. The forend is fully free floated. We've got checkering on it here, fleur-de-lis pattern. That's quite stiff. We've got a sticker on the underside, but there's a stud there so I can put a bipod on as well. But what I want to know is how stiff is the forend. So if I get hold of it like that and grasp it, if I squeeze it as tight as I can I feel that barrel touch the stock? Because it's all very well putting a piece of paper or a £10 note or something between it. Great, shows you theoretically it's free floating. But when you're actually manoeuvring and heaving around with the rifle, you know, it's on a bipod, something like that, or you're on a bit of a funny rest and you're tweaking, leaning, holding in a branch of a tree, something like that. The stiffness and rigidity of that forend is critical, because what you don't want is it to be so weak that although it was technically free floating, you don't want it to come into intermittent contact. And that is something that this rifle will not do. Right, I shall catch my breath for a second because I never shut up, do I? Next thing to look at, right, this has got a 3-lug bolt and it's a 60-degree lift. This is the mini action and it's a steel one. There's various action sizes for the CZ600 range as well as aluminium too. The easiest way to tell the difference between the steel and the aluminium action is the aluminium actions have the Picatinny rail incorporated, the steel ones don't. There are pros and cons, but I think this is a rifle, it's called the American, I can specifically think it's going to really suit the American market because the cartridges and chamberings it's available in are very US popular. 223, great for anything you need. 6.5 Creedmoor, the latest popular thing, because guess what? It's kind of superseded the 308 almost now, and I know 308s are super common, but in terms of intermediate cartridge, great shootability, light recoil, ease of use, suitable for pretty much anything in the UK, perhaps not America, but the Creedmoor is popular in the UK for that reason. It's popular in America because it's just popular in America. This is also available in 270 and it's in a 3006. It's not a 308, it's a 3006. 270 and 3006, of course, the ultimate all-conquering American cartridges throughout the last sort of 7,500 years perhaps. Certainly in the 3006's case, they love them. I must admit, I'm not really a 270 fan myself, but I do like 3006. And then there's the big boy. It's not that big a boy, but the 300 Win Mag, I do own one and I love it. It just does everything extremely well. Yes, it has some certain technical caveats to it to do with the head spacing on the belted case rather than the neck, but does it really matter? If you want to make your brass last 50 firings, maybe. If you want to make it last 5, it's not really an issue. But anyway, I digress. So this is 223. It's a control feed bolt. Now what I want to try and do on this video is show you that bolt in operation, because what you can perhaps see here, if I just remember how to snag that, there's like a little pin comes out of the bolt face. I'm just checking on the ceiling camera display, which is over there. Can you see that little pin that comes out on the bolt face? Well, that is actually the ejector. So it's very difficult to see this when it's in the rifle. But I'm going to deliberately demonstrate this, and I want to do this without the scope on. Let me just move that bag anyway, because it's annoying me. Now, you can see when I put, okay, close the bolt, blah, 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 safe dry fire, click, bang, yes. You lift the bolt, 60-degree lift, nothing particularly groundbreaking about that, and then you pull the bolt back. And the bolt kind of stops there, but watch this. Can you see there's a slight springiness to that? Well, that is in fact the action operating that little spring I just showed you, which is pushing the ejector pin out of the front of the bolt face. And that is what makes this specific design a manual ejector, because if you just draw that bolt back slowly, it won't flick the brass clear. It'll remain there and you can pick it out, and if you're reloading and you want to keep them in tip-top condition, because it's not damaging your necks, anything like that. If you are in a hunting scenario and you want to get rid of it quickly, just pull it back quickly, back hard against the stop. You're not going to pull the bolt out, but as you can see, that little bit of springiness there, that's that ejector pin. So boom, off you go. Now, you've seen me operate there, that's the bolt release catch. Bolt comes out, you can see it. Control feed face, 3 lugs. These bolt heads are actually interchangeable. It's not such a big issue on the mini action. Although technically these barrels can be changed with Allen keys, CZ have taken that really off the horizon and they are all deeply thread locked in place. It's not something to mess around with. These bolts can also be quite easily decocked and broken down. I'm going to be brave now and do it by hand. CZ do actually supply a bolt decocking tool here, but you know, I like to do these things the hard way. So if I rotate that cocking, the shroud clockwise, and draw that back, we can see the firing pin here, and then if I push that forward, the bolt head will actually come off and they can see the separate bolt head. So that makes everything easy to clean. If you ever get a bit of dirt in there, a little bit of brass off the primer, something like that, makes it a lot easier to clean out in the field. And the reason I don't want to do it with the decocking tool is I want to show you it can be done by hand, because who carries the decocking tool when they're going on a 14-mile hunt? Nobody does. Anyway, essentially, if you need to do it in that position there, the little markings actually on the bolt, I can go clockwise there and it will decock it, and I can slide that back, and then with a little bit of brute force and ignorance, push it back in, recock it, and there we go. The bolt's back in operation there. As we can see, click, bang, off we go. Right, that bolt handle is quite short, compact, makes it a nice, easy to handle rifle, fast to use, and there's actually a walnut bolt knob on there, which kind of matches in with the stock. The Americans do love the walnut stock still, and I think it's a very nice looking rifle. One thing the Americans seem to hate though, is they seem to hate polymer magazines. Now, I don't mind them at all, because personally, I think they represent the evolution of manufacturing, materials, design, etc, etc. And although they might not last as infinitely long as a metal magazine, as a steel magazine, because yes, there'll be a slight wear from the metal case rubbing on the Phillips, but once you as a manufacturer have paid to make your molds, to injection mold these things, which will likely have cost you tens if not hundreds of thousands of euros or pounds or even dollars, you can churn these things out. Once you've made the molds, you can churn these things out very, very low cost. Whereas the volume of scale on a steel magazine doesn't necessarily make it that much quicker, but the actual material for this is extremely inexpensive. And the mold is what's expensive, the machinery is what's expensive. And literally squirt, pump, that comes out, squirt, pump, that comes out. Doesn't quite squirt and pump, it actually heats with a screw thread mechanism, which then it works in the extrusion, pushes the die through. Anyway, I digress. Essentially, you can make these things super cheap. You can have 2 or 3 spares, keep one in your pocket, fully loaded, ready. That will take 5 rounds, and it's also twin column, so it will top load and you can load it in or out of the rifle. Now if I pop that back in there, I can also show you that the magazine on this will lock in position. So if I flick that forwards, that button will now not press, the magazine won't come out. I need to push that back, pop it out, and the magazine comes out. Now of course, the other way up, it will naturally drop straight into your hand. And that's a small scale magazine, so it's going to work perfectly with a 223 round. And bear in mind, I haven't shot this rifle yet. I just know it will work because CZ don't tend to make rifles that don't work. So as I go back, the Americans don't seem to like plastic magazines, polymer magazines. I'm actually quite happy with them. The magazine, now the bottom metal, I'm not 100% sure on the material on that, but I think that could actually also be aluminium, or it could be polymer, but we might just have to do a little bit of more in-depth testing on that. But I think that's actually a fibre reinforced polymer. But anyway, CZ have patented this trigger adjustment mechanism, and it's got in there a tiny little grub screw, and click, 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 it's got 4 weight stages on it. That will go from about 600 grams to 1300 grams. And if you want to shoot most of the time on stage 2 at say 900 grams, then you want to go varminting for the day and go back to a light trigger, click back to stage 1 and it will go back to that stage, and then click back to stage 2 for another day and it will go back to that stage. So if you want to shoot in the winter with gloves on 4, you can do that. If you want to go back to the spring, shoot on number 2, click, do number 2, and it will return every time. That is what's superb about this trigger. It's patented by CZ, works very well. I've never had a problem with him. I've tested probably 5 or 6 of these rifles. I've shot maybe 8 or 9 of them. Never one has been any kind of downside to me. Right, next little thing to look at on it, safety catch. That goes through the stock. So if I push it down from the top, that is now in fire. Safe, dry, fire, bang, recock it, off we go. And if I push it up from the bottom there, that is safe. And when it's unsafe, the bolt is locked. But if I press the catch on the side here, I can open the bolt as normal for a safe unload, reload, etc. like that. Go back into the fire position, down, safe, dry, fire, off we go. And it's a single stage trigger. It's crisp, it's delightful to use, and I am more than happy with it. Now, retail price on this rifle is about £1,300. There are obviously various different stock options. You can, on the 600, you can have the big heavy stock for the range version, which actually has a 0.75 MOA accuracy guarantee on it. Most of the others have, I think, 1 MOA sporting guarantee. There is also a telescope stock version, which has got slight mechanical compromise in the design, but CZ are very honest about that, and they only guarantee that one to 2 MOA. Personally, with hand loads, mine did 1, but I was quite happy with that. And I accept the fact that if you design a rifle with known, how should we put this? You can design a perfect rifle to do the perfect thing, but you might need to make compromises to that side, and you have to accept that all compromises are compromises. You might not get that perfect one-hole group every time. Therefore, if you're honest, you say, right, our best range rifle, the CZ600 range, it's going to do about 0.75 MOA guarantee. We're going to guarantee that. Same with the MDT chassis version. On the sporter ones like this one, the Ergo, I can't remember the name of the synthetic one, but there's a synthetic one as well. They're all guaranteed 1 MOA. This is guaranteed 1 MOA as well. I have no doubts it'll do it. And the other thing is the CZ cold hammer forged barrels are also thermally stable. They don't drift around. And this one being 223, well, it's just such a delightful cartridge to shoot as a 223. Close that down again. What else can we talk about before we finish? Length of pull on this is 355 millimeters, just 13.9 something inches. That makes it about perfect for most people. In terms of, a lot of American rifles are really short, they're straggling at 13 inches. European rifles tend to sort of hover around the 14 inch, 14 and a quarter inch mark. Some people go a bit longer, some people go a bit shorter. You could theoretically, by the looks of it, put some spacers under this if you needed a longer rifle, but the thing is, you probably won't, because most people will happily shoot with a 14 inch stock, and if you really want to shorten it, well, cutting walnut is cutting walnut. It's not designed as a chassis rifle, it's not designed as that. It's a classic sporting rifle in terms of its ergonomics and its looks, yet it's combined with the latest manufacturing techniques and materials technology. So there we go. Recoil pad on the back, solid rubber. It's got a slight soft spot just there and there in the centre, but it's not one of those awful sort of spongy great bits of balloon on the back of the gun. So when you put this in your shoulder, it fits in, it holds in perfectly, and it's going to grip in position. I'm not really pushing that back too hard to hold that in position there. And of course, if you're one of these people that wants to really, you know, cram your face down on the stock, well, you don't want that to slide out of your shoulder. I personally am not a fan of that approach, but some people do like it because they're under the impression that cheek weld on a sporting rifle is going to get them those tiny little groups that having a massive flinch or having a head bobbing like a Texas oil well won't have affected. But that's my little moan there. Right. What else haven't we covered? We've done the stud at the front, there's a stud at the back, sling's going to go on that. It's a classic sporting rifle made with modern technology, modern design, and I really like it. All the 600s I've used I've liked a lot. The stock, of course, makes the biggest handling difference in them all, and that one just seems to suit me and just looks right. So I'll get this set up. The bases will be here in a few days. I'll put a good old Harris bipod on the front, scope on top. I'll go for something sporting orientated. I've got, you know, something like a 4-16 or a 2-16, something like that. I've got some Element optic scopes that I think will suit that perfectly. I think it's a pretty looking rifle, and of course the Turkish walnut just gives it that perfect look. Some people will and won't like the fleur-de-lis design on it. I don't really mind, to be honest. Those seem grippy enough. There is actually a slight ambidextrous palm swell, so it does fit nicely in the hand, and it shoulders quickly as well. Now, of course, in a 223, this is going to have very, very little recoil, especially with the fact that I'll be using it with the sound moderator too. It'll be interesting to assess the way the rifle handles and feels, and kind of, I'll have to mentally do this, because I don't think there'll be many around in the UK, but I'll have to mentally do it and see what's that going to be like in a 30-06 or 300 Win Mag. To me, the 30-06 is one of the sweetest shooters ever, because although it's fairly big, it's got a lovely, smooth, steady recoil pulse in it. It's not snappy. The 270, conversely, based on the same case, slightly smaller, slightly lighter bullet, going slightly quicker, tends to have quite snappy recoil. 300 Win Mag is just a gentleman in all this, because although it's quite a big boomer, you know, it's knocking 3,500 foot-pounds. You can tune it to do what you want with one of those. Shoot light bullets, shoot heavy bullets, and surprisingly, it's not the size of the bullet that blows things to pieces. Contrary to common opinion, the speed is often what blows things to pieces, not the size of the bullet. But that's a whole different conversation for a whole different day. So there you go. That's just a bit of me. I've not really done any shooting for a couple of weeks as I've been on holiday, and I just wanted to get back into it. This arrived today, so I like the look of this, and I do want to kind of get back into the reviewing thing with a gun that I think is going to do well, and I think I'm going to like. So if you want to see the full review on it, that will be out probably in a couple of weeks when I've been shooting it, because I suspect I might take this one with me when I go to Wales next week. I'm working, and I'm going to do shooting at some longer distance with it. I'll just tell you some of the ballpark figures to start off with. 3.2 kilos, 3.279 kilos. From what my memory says, when I looked at the CZ website this morning, they said 3.2 kilos, 7 pounds. Looks all right to me, that. Pretty honest, 7 pound, 3.6 ounces. So they were clearly being fairly truthful there. If memory serves, 1102 millimeters, 43.4-ish inches, if memory serves. Right. Let's have a little look. 1097, let's call that, and that is 43¼ inches. That sounds all right to me. We've already said the barrel, it's 610 millimeters, 24 inches, that's it, and that is measured from the crown right up to the gas escape port there. The gas escape port is something most rifles have, and if you ever burst the case or burst a primer or something like that, the gas that comes out the back vents out to the side rather than through the bolt system. That's just a little bit of information for you. Right, if you want to see the review, please like, subscribe, comment, click the notification bell and keep track of the regular uploads. But the more comments you put on this video, the more I can feed back on those comments and put those and answer those questions when I do the full review video on this. But in the meantime, thank you to Sportsman Gun Centre for sending me this, and to you lot, thank you for watching. Bye for now.